네. 네, 안녕하세요. 오늘 수업 진행을 하도록 하겠습니다. 참 날씨가 좋은데 잘 놀지 못하는 그런 상황이 아쉽기는 하지만 어쨌든 절제력을 발휘를 해가지고 잘 이겨내기를 바라겠습니다. 예, 오늘은 어쨌든 이제 저번에 이제 배웠던 exception에 대해서 조금 리뷰를 하고 그리고 이제 우리가 이제 리스크 5 그 사실 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처는 아마 뭐 여기서 이제 재수강을 하는 학생들은 뭔가 이제 새롭게 다가올 수가 있는데요. 왜냐하면 이제 보통은 이제 전통적인 그런 컴퓨터 아키텍처 코र्스는 우리가 이제 MIPS라는 역시나 뭐 MIPS도 이제 리스크 타입의 그 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처긴 하지만 어쨌든 전통적으로는 MIPS를 가지고서 이제 우리가 언더그래주에이트 코र्스는 컴퓨터 아키텍처 코를 이제 배웠을 거예요. 근데 이제 리스크 5는 사실은 최근에 이제 발표가 된 그런 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처고요. 사실 MIPS를 발견이 아니죠. 발명한 그런 버클리죠. 그 연구실에서 다시 이제 만든 그런 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처입니다. 뭐 리스크 타입 그 ISA 그 우리가 보통 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처지만 그냥 줄여서 ISA라고 이제 부르는데 그 사실 리스크 타입의 이제 ISA 같은 경우에 가장 유명한 것은 ARM이죠. 그리고 이제 뭐 회사나 이런 뭐 실제적으로 커머셜한 그런 SOC에 들어가는 프로세서는 거의 대부분이 ARM입니다. 이것은 왜냐하면은 ARM이 뭐 옛날부터 꾸준하게 이렇게 자기네들의 그 뭐 IP 코어라든지 그 CPU 코어 이런 부분들을 계속해서 연구를 하고 발전시켜 왔고요. 그 다음에 이제 ARM을 지원하는 그런 이걸 툴체인이라고 하는데 뭐 컴파일러라든지 아니면 디버깅 툴이라든지 이런 것들이 이제 잘 이렇게 뭐랄까 만들어져 있습니다. 뭐 그렇기 때문에 그 우리가 이제 보통 생각하는 커머셜한 그런 프로덕트에는 ARM을 이제 많이 쓰고 있습니다. 뭐 그런데 이제 ARM은 공짜는 아니에요. It's not free because 이거는 뭐 ARM이라는 ARM 홀딩스라는 그런 기업에서 뭐 만들었기 때문에 이런 여러 가지 툴이라든지 디버깅 툴 이런 것들은 사실은 프리가 아닙니다. 돈을 주고 사서 써야 돼요. 뭐 그렇기 때문에 그 우리 아카데미아 그 여기 커뮤니티 보통 이제 우리가 아카데미아 커뮤니티라고 이제 보통 부르게 되는데 이런 학계에서는 어쨌든 이제 하나 뭔가 이제 공개된 그런 그 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처가 이제 필요하다는 거를 이제 조금 필요성이 조금 이제 대두가 되었고 어쨌든 옛날에 MIPS를 만들었긴 했지만 그 MIPS보다는 좀 더 이제 현대적인 모던한 프로세스에 이제 맞게 그 우리가 이제 인스트럭션 셋 아키텍처가 필요하다라는 그런 필요성을 가지고서 개발이 된 것이 이제 리스크 5입니다. 어쨌든 여러분들이 이제 문제는 이제 ARM이나 그런 뭐 MIPS는 이제 전통적으로 이제 교재에서 많이 썼고요. 이런 뭐 ISA에 비해서는 조금은 뭐 생소한 그런 느낌이 들 수가 있는데 뭐 그래가지고 이번 시간에는 그런 리스크 5를 좀 서포트를 하는 그런 툴들, 그러니까 리스크 5의 시뮬레이션 툴들을 조금 이제 소개를 하도록 하겠습니다. 그리고 이제 시간이 남으면은 그 다음 토픽으로 이제 넘어가려고 합니다. 예, 그게 이제 예, 어쨌든 brief agenda of this class고요. 자, 우리가 이제 그 뭐랄까 저번 시간에는 exception에 대해서 이제 배웠죠. 뭐 말 그대로 여러분들 exception이라는 것은 뭐 rare한 어떤 이벤트라고 이제 생각을 하면 됩니다. 뭐 어떤 rare한 이벤트라는 거는 사실은 우리가 unexpected 이벤트, 그러니까는 별로 이제 노멀한 케이스가 아니니까는, 그러니까 우리가 이제 뭐라 그럴까, correct한 오퍼레이션이 아니라 뭔가 incorrect 오퍼레이션이 이제 발생한다든지, 아니면은 뭐 뭐랄까, 아니면 뭐 뭔가 이제 interrupt 같은, 뭐 사용자가 이제 그 input output 디바이스를 쓴다든지 이렇게 해서 interrupt가 들어온다든지 이런 뭐 여러 가지 이제 케이스를 뭐 통틀어서 exception 혹은 뭐 구별해서 interrupt랑 exception은 구별하긴 해요. 왜냐면 interrupt는 이제 의도가 된, 사용자의 의도가 이제 들어가 있기 때문에 뭐 약간 구별을 하긴 하는데, 뭐 이런 이벤트들을 우리가 다 exception 이벤트라고 이제 얘기를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 unexpected event, 뭐 definition of the exception은 unexpected event라고 여러분이 그냥 생각을 하면은 뭐 이거는 뭐 편합니다. 뭐 unexpected event라는 거는 뭐 우리가 이제 프로그램을 이제 수행을 하면은 여기서 쭉 아래로 실행되는 거를 이제 바라는 거죠. 근데 이제 그게 이제 노멀하게 이제 수행이 되는 것이 아니라 뭔가 이제 우리가 예상하지 못했던 그런 사건이 이제 발생하는 그런 케이스를 이제 exception, 뭐 계속 제가 얘기를 하지만 가장 쉽게 볼 수 있는 exception이 divide by zero죠. 뭐 영어로 하면은 그게 이제 숫자가 나올 수가 없으니까 뭐 이런 정의가 안 됐죠, 수학적으로. 그러니까는 이런 것들이 이제 뭐 케이스, 뭐 example of exception이 이제 되겠습니다. 그럼 요 exception은 뭐 처리를 해줘야 돼요. 어쨌든 뭐 그러니까 뭔가 이제 잘못된 게 이제 들어왔다. 그러면은 그냥 뭐 하드웨어가 이제 뻗어버린다든지, 뭐 프로세서가 이제 그냥 중단돼 버린다든지, 뭐 이렇게 이제 할 수도 있겠지만, 뭐 사용자가 그걸 원하진 않죠. 뭐 유저는 뭐 자기가 이제 프로그램을 잘못 짰으면은 뭐 디버깅도 해야 되고 어디서 이제 문제가 있는지 알아야 되기 때문에 이런 exception을 사실 유저가 알아야 됩니다. 어쨌든 알려면은 exception을 리포트를 해줘야 되고, 그 다음에 하드웨어 같은 경우에는 이게 뭐 어쨌든 unexpected 이벤트이기 때문에 그 리포트를 하고서 어떻게 처리할지를 기다려야 되는 거죠. 그래서 이런 부분들을 이제 서포트를 하는 것이 이제 exception, 하드웨어에서 이제 exception을 서포트를 하는 그런 펑션들이 이제 되겠고요. 그 exception handler는 그거는 이제 그냥 소프트웨어입니다. 왜냐면 이 exception이라는 거는, 그리고 이제 이 exception handler는 뭐가 매니지한다? 오퍼레이팅 시스템이 매니지합니다. 그래서 하드웨어는 그냥 리포트를 하고 어디서 exception이 발생했다, 어떤 인스트럭션에서 어떤 어떤 종류의 exception이 발생을 했다라는 것만 리포트를 해주면 돼요. 그거가 이제 하드웨어가 이제 할 일이고, 그걸 오퍼레이팅 시스템이 받아서 그 exception handler를 돌려주는 겁니다. 예, 그렇게 대해서 설명을 했고요. 그래서 이제 뭐 리스크 5 같은 경우에는 뭐 exception을 핸들링하기 위한 뭐 스페셜 레지스터가 있다라고 했죠. SEPC랑 Scores가 이제 이런 스페셜한 그 레지스터라고 할 수 있겠는데요. 뭐 이건 별 이렇게 특별한 게 아니라 사실, 그러니까는 뭐 그렇게 뭐 어려운 것이 아니라, 아까 말했듯이 hardware role of hardware is to report where exception happens and then what kind of exception happens 이거라고 했죠. 뭐 그렇기 때문에 이런 뭐 exception이 발생했던 뭐 PC, 그 다음에 exception의 종류, cause를 리포트를 해주는 거예요. 그냥 그 알려주고 처분을 기다리는 겁니다. 예, 그런데 이제 그것을 우리가 exception을 파이프라이닝에서 이제 처리를 해야 되는 거죠. 자, exception을 처리하는 방법은 어디 있죠? 요겁니다. 그 파이프라인에서 어떻게 처리를 하느냐. 어쨌든 exception이 발생하면은 우리가 이제 파이프라인 같은 경우에는 같은 클럭 사이클에 여러 종류의 인스트럭션이 사실 들어가 있죠. 그러니까 스테이지가 다르니까 각각의 스테이지에 사실 the different kinds of instruction이 들어가 있는 겁니다. 그러니까 우리는 이제 구별을 해줘야 돼요. 어떻게 구별을 해줘야 되죠? 어떤 그 파이프라이닝의 exception이 발생한 instruction이 있고 그 전에 수행되던 instruction이 있고 나중에 이제 들어온 instruction이 있다라는 거죠. 그래서 이제 요 세 개를 구별을 해줘야 되고 됩니다. 뭐 exception이 발생했으면은 얘는 이 instruction에 대해서 리포트를 해줘야 되고 요 instruction의 결과는 쓰면 안 돼요. 왜냐면은 rare한 뭐 예를 들어서 divide by zero인데 요 값을 써버린다 하면은 문제가 생길 수가 있는 거죠. 그렇기 때문에 얘는 수행을 하진 않습니다. 그 다음에 요 앞에 있던 그 인스트럭션은 어떻게 돼요? 얘까지는 다 컴플리션을 시켜줘야 돼요. 그렇기 때문에 얘는 write back 스테이지까지 그대로 진행을 해줘야 됩니다. 그 다음에 나중에 들어온 인스트럭션은 어차피 얘도 취소했으니까는 뭐 나중에 들어온 인스트럭션을 수행해봤자 아무런 의미가 없는 거죠. 항상 프로그램은 위에서 아래로. 그래서 얘도 취소를 시켜줘야 되는 거. 이것만 기억하면 돼요, 사실. 그래서 이런 식으로 어떻게 처리를 할 거냐. 사실 뭐 계속 말을 하지만은 exception 핸들링 하는 거는 그 브랜치 인스트럭션을 수행하는 것하고 거의 비슷합니다. 예. 그래서 이게 추가가 된 그런 하드웨어가 이렇게 여기 있고요. 뭐 여기 사실은 이 example에서는 그러니까 한 종류의 exception만 지금 그러니까 EX 스테이지에서 발생하는 exception만 지금 뭐 고려를 했기 때문에 이것만 보여주고 있지만 뭐 여러 가지 이제 그 서로 다른 exception이 있겠죠. 거기에 따라서 어떻게 이제 수행을 할 거냐 이런 것들을 다 고려를 해서 설계를 해줘야 됩니다. 네, exception은 그 다음에 어떤 식으로 이제 핸들러를 불러오는지 이렇게 이제 했고요. 그거를 그림으로 보여준 거를 이렇게 봤습니다. 그래서 뭐 exception이라는 거는 rare한 케이스이기 때문에 사실은 뭐 어려울 수는 있어요. 그래서 maybe hard to understand, but 그렇지만은 그냥 여러분들이 뭐 branch instruction을 생각하고 뭐 이해를 한다고 하면은 뭐 이해하는 데는 어려울 것이 없다라고는 뭐 저는 생각을 합니다. 예. 그러니까는 그런 exception 부분들을 이제 잘 살펴보고요. 특히 뭐 계속 그 전에도 말했지만은 항상 우리 설계할 때는 이런 small case, 아주 rare case가 사실 복잡한 거를 많이 작업을 해요. 참 아이러니할 수는 있는데요. 그래서 뭐라 했죠? 뭐 영어 속담 중에 유명한 속담이 devil is in the details 이게 라는 게 있죠. 예. 어쨌든 그런 레어한 케이스 혹은 디테일을 들어가다 보면은 고려할 것도 많고 설계할 때도 어렵고 뭐 이런 여러 가지 이제 골치 아픈 상황들이 이제 발생을 하게 됩니다. 뭐 그래서 문제 내기도 좋죠. 네. 그래서 빨리 넘어갔겠죠? 네. 아니네. 이거는 스토어하고 yeah, and then in this time, so actually until now, I reviewed the previous class regarding exceptions and the pipeline architecture. So you need to remember that how to handle the exception in the pipeline, and then I show the three examples of the actually three different handling of the instructions when exception happens in the pipelines. So, and then this handling exception is very similar to the handling taken branch instruction. So, if you can understand how the taken branch is handled in the pipeline architecture, then I believe you can easily understand how the exception is handled in the pipeline architecture. And then now I will talk about some simulation tool of RISC-V instruction set architecture. So RISC-V is the open source instruction set architecture. So this RISC-V research is done by the academia community. So many academia laboratory and the university laboratories are working on this RISC-V instruction set architecture and the RISC-V processor architecture. And then they developed some tools to help people understand the operation of the RISC-V architecture or structure of the RISC-V. So in this time, I will introduce some tools, the computer architecture tools. So, and then actually it's a simulation tool, and then to you, and then I believe these tools help you to understand how the processor works and how the RISC-V instructions work. Okay, let's talk about the computer architecture tools. So actually this is the layer of the computer system, and I believe in the first class I already mentioned these multiple layers of the computer system. So actually basically the computer system is composed of software part and then hardware part. So in order to run applications on the computer system, then we need this both part, hardware and software. But understanding everything of a computer system is really impossible. It's really nearly impossible. So it's because the computer is some integrated technology of hardware and software. For example, so in order to build the computer system hardware, we need the cutting edge of semiconductor technology, and then very complex digital system logic, and then also some very fast signal transfer interface, such as the DRAM interface or DRAM physical layer, and then PCIe serial link, and then so actually the many different kinds of technology is required to build computer hardware. Also, so this is just the hardware, and then this is some logic of the computer hardware. Also, we need the computer architecture knowledge to understand the structure of the computer processor, and then also to understand some architecture of the computer system. So we need the computer architecture knowledge, and then on this knowledge, so actually on the computer hardware, operating system runs, and then this operating system manages the computer system hardware. Also, the operating system manages some required process by the user applications. So actually, the normal programmers doesn't understand how the operating system works because it's complex, and then it's a different area. So it's a different layer. So and then up over this operating system, user application runs. So in these multiple layers, normally these layers are the software part, and then normally these layers is the hardware part, and then this architecture part is the interface is located in the boundary of software part and then hardware part of a computer system. So actually it's not easy to understand how the computer system works for the normal people, but you are a computer engineering student, so you need to understand. Okay. But even the computer engineering student doesn't know how some semiconductor process technology, and then how the digital logic works on the inside of the computer processor. It's some out of scope of the computer engineering student or computer science student. So someone can understand, but actually I believe until this layer is some area of the computer engineering. So these are the area of computer engineering, right? So it's not easy to understand the real operation of the computer hardware or computer system. So we need the simulation tool or some graphical tool to understand the operation of the computer system. So but we can work on the real hardware, and then this is the picture of the SSD development board I worked on. So as you can see, this is the real hardware. So we can work with the real hardware by changing some component of the hardware, or by changing some system software, but it's very complicated, very hard. So we need some software to emulate the operation of the computer system, and then this software is called the simulator. So, and then this work is emulating some operation with the software. This work is called the simulation, like simulation. And then the tools that simulate the operation of the computer system is called the simulator, right? So I believe most of you are very familiar with this terminology, simulation, because we enjoy the simulation games such as what's that? Okay, I'm also actually, when I was a college student, Warcraft was StarCraft was very popular. So actually, this game is called the real-time simulation game. So what does that mean? So simulation means to emulate the operation of the real simulate the real world operations or some real world behavior. StarCraft is some product of imaginary product, so it's not real world, but it emulates some behavior of soldier or monsters and some, right, and then aliens. So this operation is called the simulation. So if an application emulate, so it's like emulate, it's not real, but it's just shows the operation of the some real world operation. So this is called the emulation. So if a software emulate the operation of the computer system, and then this software is called the computer architecture simulator, or some architectural simulator. So it's a software. And then in this time, I will introduce the assembly simulator and then graphical architecture simulator to you. And then I believe these tools will help you understand the operation of the RISC-V or operation of pipeline architecture. So these tools are very useful. So let's start with from the assembly simulator. So actually we only programmers only write the high level programming language. Programmers usually use the high level programming languages such as C, C++. It's a high level. So someone may not agree with the C is the high level language, but it's true. It's a high level language. So normally the programmers use the high level languages such as C, C++, Python, Java, or recently Go, some Swift, and then some new languages. Okay. So and then these high level languages are so program code written in these high level languages are compiled into assembly code. So normally the normal programmers does not care about this assembly code, but we are learning the computer architecture, so this assembly code is very important for computer architect. Okay. So and then how can we get the assembly code from the high level language? So we need compiler. So this is the high level language. So program code written in high level language, and then compiler translate this high-level language into assembly. And then normally the assembly code has the extension .s, and then high-level language like a C or CPP or Pi or some other extensions. And then this assembly code is translated into the some machine language in the computer system. And then computer processor read this machine language from the memory and then runs the translated code. So basically, in order to get the assembly code, we need a compiler. And then this compiler depends on the instruction set architecture of a host computer. What's the host computer? So if we run a compiler on the x86 computer system, then x86 computer becomes a host computer. Normally, and we call this computer as the host computer or host system. So if we run a compiler on a certain host computer, then the compiler translate the high-level language into the assembly code of the instruction set architecture of the host computer. So if we run the compiler on the x86 system, like Intel or AMD CPU, then this compiler generates the x86 assembly code. But we are running RISC-V. So how can we get the RISC-V assembly code? And then normally we don't have RISC-V computers. So how can we get the RISC-V assembly code from the high-level language? So some code of the high-level language. So solution is here is the solution. Here are solution. Actually, here's two solutions. So we can use the cross compiler. So cross compiler enables the compiling to RISC-V assembly on the other different types of the computers. For example, we can use the cross compiler for RISC-V on the x86 computers. So if with this cross compiler, so some high-level code written in high-level language is compiled into the RISC-V assembly code with the RISC-V cross compiler. Okay, so we can use the cross compiler, and then also we can use the virtualization tool. So what are the popular virtualization tool? VirtualBox and then VMware. So VMware Workstation. Yeah, VMware Workstation. So these tools are popular virtualization tool, but these tools only support the virtualization of the same instruction set architecture. So that means that if the VirtualBox runs on the x86 computer system, then we can only run the program written in the x86 compiled with the x86 instruction set architecture. But if some operating system compiled in the ARM system, and then this operating system does not run on the VirtualBox on the x86 system, but there are some special virtualization tool called the QEMU. With this QEMU tool, we can run the different kinds of instruction set architecture application. So, and actually operating system, not application, operating system. So we can use the virtualization tools such as QEMU. So these are the solutions to run the RISC-V assembly code, but we may need the more what is that? It's a more kind tool, so more convenient tools. So these are and then if with this more convenient tools, so it is easier to understand the operation of the RISC-V assembly. Okay, so these are the example tools. So Jupyter, Lars, IRIS8, and then also QEMU is developed for RISC-V architecture, and then Brisk5 is a Brisk5 is the web-based tool. So and then in this class, I will show the Jupyter and then Brisk5, and it's a web-based tool. So and then also I showed the URL of these tools, but you can receive Cameo on the so Cameo is a very popular tool. So I show the URLs of these tools, so you can go to this site. Actually, most of the tools you can get most of the tools on the GitHub. Okay, so this is the what's that appearance of the Jupyter Brisk5 assembly simulator. So as you can see, these are the address, the program counter of the compiled machine code, and then this is also you can find the machine code here, and this is the Brisk5 assembly code, and then here is the source code. So actually, the assembly code and the translated some code is different, because in the assembly code we can use some target address. We can use the target address as the characters, like a factorial here, but in the compiled code, this target of the branch instruction is translated into the real immediate value. Okay, so these are the translated value. So it's a basic code, and here's the source code. And so you can see the contents of the register file and the memory and even cache. So it's very amazing. So and then you can run the assembly code step by step. So with this button. So I will show the example here. Actually, I installed the Jupyter simulator here. So here. So you can get this Jupyter tool on the GitHub, and then you can here is the Jupyter tool, and then you can use the PowerShell on the Windows on the PowerShell, the Jupyter 3.1, and then cd bin, and then run the Jupyter.bat. So Jupyter is running. So here is the initial window of the Jupyter, and then you can load the assembly code here. Here is the okay. So I will load my what's this? Where is that? Okay, computer architecture. No, where is the tools? Not here. Okay, sorry. Okay, tools, Jupyter, workplace. Okay, I already wrote the assembly code here. So this is the factorial code, and then you can see the this is some basic factorial assembly code. So you can see the some Brisk5 instructions we learned, and then actually, but one of the difference is that Jupyter runs the only 32-bit instructions. Actually, so in this course we learned the 64-bit Brisk5 instructions, but Jupyter only support the 32-bit instructions. So instead of the SD, it's a store double word, I used the store word. It's a 32-bit instruction, store word. Also, I used the load word instead of load double word, LD. So if you change the SD into SW and then LD into LW, then you can run your assembly code in this simulator, Brisk5 simulator. So if you press the F3, okay, the assembly code is compiled into this basic code and the machine code here, and then you can run this code step by step, like here. And then you can see the change of register values here, and then you can find the different instructions here. And then good thing is that, so if you if this simulator encounters branch instructions, then by the content of this registers, then you can see which instruction is fetched by this branch instruction. Okay, here. So you can find the memory value, and I don't know what the cache. Okay, so this is very convenient tool. It's a very good tool. So if you are interested in the RISC-V assembly program, then you can, and then if you see how the assembly codes work on the computer processor, then you can make use of this tool. It's assembly simulation tool. It's very easy and then convenient. Okay, so this is the actually I captured the what's that introduction page of the Jupyter on the GitHub. So readme.md, so markdown. So you can what's that, go to this page on the GitHub, and then you can see the description of the Jupyter on the GitHub. Also, another good assembly simulation tool is RISC-V, and then this RISC-V is the web-based tool. So if you visit this website, then you can find this BRISC simulator, so assembly simulator. And then this BRISC simulator was made by this laboratory, so university lab, at the Boston University. And then you can find this very convenient simulator. And then one of the good things of this BRISC simulator is that you can compile the C code into RISC-V assembly, and then you can compare your C code and then compile the assembly code. So I show this is Jupyter, and then RISC-V, so RISC-V simulator, and then okay, I will reload. So firstly, this RISC-V simulator shows the source code of the Fibonacci, and then if you click this button, then this code is translated into RISC-V assembly code. And then similar to this Jupyter simulator, you can run this assembly program with this button, or with this button you can run the assembly code step by step. Also, you can write your own program. So I will write a very simple program like int main. So int a equal 1, int p equal 2, int c equal a plus b. So this is a very simple program, and then you can compile this simple program into the RISC-V assembly program. So maybe you may find that this compiled assembly program is much more complex than expectation. So it is because in the translate assembly program is stores this final value on the memory. Also, so actually in this C program, I declare that the variable a has the value 1, but in the translated assembly program, you can see the assembler stores the 1 into this A5 register, and then this value is just stored in the actually it's a stack pointer on some stack memory, and then the new value is also stored in the stack pointer, and then this value is loaded again to the different registers. I don't know why assembler, actually compiler used this translate the code like this, but what operation is okay, but I don't know why. So we can use this value directly. Maybe this, I think this compiler is not optimized, does not apply the optimization technique or some different optimization, but yeah, it's okay. So you can find the translated assembly code here, but you can find that this the name of the register is a little is different from what we learned in this course. So that is because this simulator used some some meaningful register name, meaningful or some different register name. So and then you can find the meaning of this register on the RISC-V assembly programmer's manual. So you can find this manual on the also GitHub. So GitHub has everything. Okay. So this is the general register of the RISC-V, and then this is the register number. These are the register numbers we learned on this course from X0 to X31, and then program counter, and then this is the some application binary interface register name. Okay. So you can use this ABI register name here instead of X0 or X1 or some different general register name we learned under this course. So you can find some mapping of this register number and the ABI register name here. Okay. So in this example, so this instruction used A5, and then A5 is X15. And then you can find some what's that? So some more complicated function call in here, because when the C program is launched, then the main function is called first, and this is also the kind of a function. It's a kind of a function call. So main function is here. So as this running is the function call, then it used the stack pointer here, and then that's what we learned in the function procedure call in the previous class. So this is the somewhat different. Okay. And you can find the content of register or memory also here, and then you can find some instruction format of the corresponding instruction on the simulator. So I believe if you use these simulators, then you can easily understand how RISC-V assembly is processed and works in the computer hardware. Let's see. Oh, it's a 43. And then another good tool is the graphical architecture simulator. So I think it is very, very amazing. Is it because this simulator shows the operation of the pipeline graphically. So normally, if the tools are developed in the academia community, then they use the command line interface, not graphic user interface. So they just shows some command line description and then some result in the text. So it is because the providing GUI is not easy, and then it takes time. And then, but this tool provides the graphical graphic GUI for the pipeline simulation. So it's very amazing, and then it's a very great. So this tool is the RIPE, and then so this tool helps us to understand the pipeline architecture of RISC-V, and then fortunately this tool shows the 5-stage pipeline architecture we learned in this course, right? So it's an amazing tool, right? So you can download the tool on this site. It's GitHub also. GitHub has everything. So github.com and then RIPES, and this tool's name is RIPE. Oops, Actually I already launched the ripe, and then so this is the okay. So with the ripe you can also compile the RISC-V assembly code. So this is the code I wrote. So just add x5 plus x6 and then store the result value in the x register x6. So it's a very simple tool. And then this assembly code is translated in the executable machine code like here. And then you can find some new assembly instruction. It's a AUIPC. So AUIPC is stores the program counter value plus immediate value to the register. So it's some special. If you are interested in the more RISC-V instructions, then you can Google AUIPC of RISC-V. So you can find the meaning of this AUIPC here. But some other instruction is very straightforward. Okay, so we use the load word. So load word is here, the load word here, and then use the add instruction. So you see, these are the compiled code, and then you can find the it's a pipeline stage name here. So that means that this instruction is on the instruction fetch stage. So let's see the graphical interface. Okay. Oh, what happened? So I will. Okay. So as you can see, these simulator implement the 5-stage pipeline architecture of RISC-V. So you should be very familiar with this figure because we covered these figures many times in the slide. So you should be very familiar. If you take okay. So instruction memory is a program counter, and then PC+4 is here instruction fetch stage, and then register, and then instruction decoder, and the immediate generator, ALU, and then some forwarding registers, right? And branch instruction is reserved in the ALU, EX stage, and then data memory, and then write back. A little bit different for the branch instruction, but I think it's enough to to see the operation of the instruction in the pipeline architecture. A little bit different about the branch instruction. Okay, so you can find the register value here. It's a very convenient tool, and very kind tool, generous tool here. And then you can find the contents of the instruction memory here. So the instructions are stored in the instruction memory and then fetched by the program counter. And then this is statistics, the cycle, CPI, clock per instruction, and then IPC, instructions per clock. So very useful tool. And then if you click this button, then you can see that the instructions propagate to the next stage. So AUIPC is in the ID stage, and then load word is in the IF stage, instruction fetch stage. So also this simulator only supports the 32-bit instructions. So remember that we need to use the load word instead of load double word. Okay, so it's a load word. So you can click this button. So AUIPC is in EX, and then hit. Yeah, so you can find that all 5 instructions are in the pipeline stages. Good. You can see some change of register values here. Okay, and then you can see the NOP. It's a store. Why stored? Because of this data dependency between load instruction and add instruction, right? Because of the the hazard is detected, so this add instruction should be stalled. So when the add instruction is stalled in the ID stage, then bubble is generated here. So nope is in the EX stage, right? Oh, so very good. Done. So cycle 10, number of instruction 5, CPI 2, clock per instruction, IPC is 0.5. And then you can change the the structure of the processor. So single cycle processor, 5-stage processor, and then 5-stage processor without hazard detection, and then 5-stage processor without forwarding or hazard detection. So you can test the different kinds of instructions with this simulator. And I think actually this is very simple. Single cycle RISC-V, and then I did not try about the without hazard detection, but let me try. Oh, so long. So there is no store in the at this add instruction. So this processor will generate the incorrect value for this operation, right? Why? Okay, so this is the amazing tool, and then so I think this tool will help you to understand the structure of the pipeline, the architecture more easily. So if you wanna understand the pipeline architecture more easily, then try to use this tool. It's a RIVE tool. It's an amazing tool, right? So okay, I introduced some tools to you, and then you can make use of these tools to develop the knowledge on computer architecture and the RISC-V processor, and then it's amazing, right? Okay, what time is it now? It's 52. Okay. Okay, here. And where is the? Okay, oops. So, and then so we complete actually the learning of regarding the pipeline architecture in the previous class, and then now I will cover some miscellaneous topics about some advanced computer architecture. So actually, as I explained, the 5-stage pipeline architecture has the very simple structure, and so actually this 5-stage the pipeline, the simple pipeline architecture was developed in a long time ago, and that means that the performance of this 5-stage pipeline architecture is very low. But the good thing of this simple pipeline architecture is that the computer processor does not consume much power compared to the this modern architecture. So if you runs the very simple program on the mobile devices, then you can use some processor can have the very simple pipeline architecture. For example, if you run the IoT devices, very simple IoT device, not such as the Google speaker, was not such as, so it's different from the Google speaker or Kakao speakers, Kakao friend speaker. But if you run the very simple program, like I said the very simple program, then some processor has the simple pipeline architecture, because in order to reduce the power consumption. But if not, modern processor has the different architecture. Actually, in the undergraduate course, we learn this pipeline architecture, and then in the advanced computer architecture course or graduate course, we learn this advanced architecture of the modern processor. So from now on, I will cover some advanced topic about some modern processor, the instruction level parallelism. So this content is briefly also introduced in the textbook. So if you are interested, but if you are interested, you can read the textbook. Also, I will briefly cover these topics. But the major topic of this course is pipeline architecture and memory hierarchy. So this is some advanced topics. So let's talk about the instruction level parallelism. So we use the parallelism here, use the terminology parallelism here, and then it says the instruction level parallelism. So meaning of this terminology is that actually the parallelism via instructions. So what does that mean? So what does parallelism mean? So in Korean, parallelism means 병렬화라고 했죠. 병렬화. And then so the meaning of the parallelism is to make something work in parallel. So make something in parallel. So make something in parallel way, parallel fashion. 그러니까는 병렬화를 시켜서 동작하도록 만드는 것이 it's parallelism. Parallelism. It's hard to pronounce it. It's very hard. And what does instruction level mean? So instruction level parallelism means that make many instructions run in parallel. So that means that at the same time execute more than one instructions. Okay? That is called the instruction level parallelism, and then frequently we use the abbreviation form ILP. So instruction level parallelism. So pipelining is also the example that implement the ILP on processor. Why? When you see the pipeline architecture in the different instructions, actually for the pipeline 5-stage pipeline architecture, 5 different instructions run concurrently at the same cycle, run concurrently on the different stages of pipeline architecture. So in this, so that means in other words, more than one, the 5 instructions run concurrently. So that pipeline architecture also implement ILP, right? So pipeline executing the multiple instructions in parallel. So with the pipeline architecture, then we can increase the performance of the computer system. So compared to the single cycle processor, so we also compare some performance improvement by pipeline architecture in the previous class. So how can we increase the ILP with the pipeline architecture? The first is the deep. Well, I don't know. The first way is make pipeline stage deeper. Okay, deeper pipeline. 참 제가 글씨를 못 써요. So then the deeper pipeline, with the deeper pipeline, the less work is assigned to each pipeline stage, so we can use the shorter clock cycle. Also with this deeper pipeline, then more instructions learned in parallel. So more instructions learn concurrently with the default pipeline. And then another way is multiple issue. What does multiple issue mean? What does multiple issue mean? So more than one instructions are issued to the execution unit, or more than one instructions are fetched from the instruction memory. That is called the multiple issue. So how can we implement the multiple issue? Just replicate the pipeline stages. So if we use the double ALU, like two ALUs, then in the same time we can run the two different R-type instructions, right? So multiple pipeline. So with this multiple issue, we can increase the instructions per cycle. Actually, until now, we use the CPI as the performance metric, but we can use the instruction per cycle, so IPC, number of instructions per cycle. It is because with the multiple issue, CPI can be less than 1, so we can use the instruction per cycle here. So if we use the instruction per cycle, if the value of the IPC is higher, then that means that the performance is higher. Okay. So let's see the for example, four-way multiple issue. That means that 4 instructions can be issued or executed at the same time. And then let us assume that this processor works with the 4 gigahertz clock frequency. So it's a 4x4. Yes. So this ideally this computer can run 16 billion instructions per second. 16 BIPS. 16 billion instructions. And then CPI, the ideal CPI is 0.25. That means IPC is 4. So in one clock, 4 different instructions can be executed. So this is the ideal case. So that means that in reality, the performance is less than 4. So actually, in the pipeline architecture, the IPC is less than 1. That means the CPI is bigger than 1 because of data dependency. That is also true for the multi-issue hardware. So because of the data dependency, the performance is not cannot reach the peak IPC with this multiple issue hardware. Okay, let's see the okay. So this is so I will stop here. So in the next class, I will briefly also cover some topics of modern processor architecture, like this multiple issue, speculation, and then out-of-order processing, and then some different issues. It's advanced topics. But if you know this topic, then you have some deep knowledge on the computer architecture. 네, 수고 많았고요. Then I will post the assignment for the pipeline architecture today or tomorrow. So I plan to post the homework number 3 today, but I need the time to make the homework questions. So I will post the homework can be posted on today or tomorrow. Okay. 수고 많았고요. 예. 어쨌든 내가 툴을 소개를 한 이유는 여러분들이 잘 이해를 할 수 있도록 이런 사실은 이제 아키텍처라는 분야가 좀 앱스트랙트하게 이제 보여주기도 하고, 또 이제 우리가 실제적으로 이제 실습을 하면 좋은데, 엑서사이즈 랩을 진행을 하면 좋은데, 그렇지 못하기 때문에, 이런 툴을 써가지고 이제 좀 여러분들이 잘 이해를 하면 좋겠다라는 생각으로 툴을 좀 소개를 해드렸습니다. 그래서 수고 많았고, so stay healthy and then keep studying hard. 별로 이제 반도 넘게 지났는데 참 뭐 어려운 시간을 보내고 있다라고 뭐 이해를 하고 있습니다. 열심히 그렇지만은 잘 공부를 하시고 그러면 좋겠습니다. 수고 많았습니다.